Travis says Billy Napier has a punchable face. So the guys that are on the message board, if you could get away with punching one person in the SEC and you could get away with it and you wouldn't get beat up, when Edward Duran was in the SEC, I would not suggest that.
He would punch back.
Yeah, that might not go well, and he might enjoy it, which makes it even worse when you get beat up and they enjoy it. You at least want the guy to feel the pain a little bit. Most punchable face on our message board. Go ahead and throw that out there. We might throw that out there as today's tough question. Who would you most like to punch in the SEC and get away with it?
And we don't advocate violence. We should say that up front.
Or maybe we do. But yeah, no, we don't advocate violence, but just most punchable face. Who would you most like to punch and get away with it? Travis. Travis took mine. Travis said, "Oh, that's definitely Drinkwitz."
No, you guys are all wrong. There's an obvious one, and it's because he's a horrible human being, and it's Hugh Freeze. Hugh Freeze.
Oh, okay.
I wish nothing but bad fortune for him for the rest of his life. I cannot stand him. Hugh Freeze, when I covered recruiting in 2015 and 2014, was one of those guys. And first of all, for those who don't know, coached at a Christian school down the road from where I grew up. And then he was the ultimate annoying I'm super religious in your face type of guy when he was trying to win recruits over for Ole Miss. Meanwhile, he was cheating. He had the prostitution scandal. Then he goes to Liberty's is trying to be the Protestant version of Notre Dame, we're holier than thou because we're this moral majority Protestant. But, they hire somebody who covered up for the Baylor scandal in 2015. They hire Hugh Freeze. And yeah, everything about Freeze is hypocrisy and despicable. I cannot stand him. And guys, as long as I'm on the show, I will never say a nice thing about him.
Yeah, and Travis said note to self, stay on Caleb's good side. The other thing, 2015 was his super class, wasn't it?
I thought it was like 2013, wasn't it?
Okay, yeah, he got the one class that had Robert Kimdichie in it, and then he had another really good defensive back that was out of Mississippi. This is while he was at Ole Miss, obviously. So you're kind of rolling with that. Kimdichie had a brother. Okay, I get it. And then he had another really highly touted receiver that had like a cousin. So you're like, okay, this is all lining up for Hugh Freeze. I get it. And then the one, though, that made zero sense is why Laramie Tunsil would go to Ole Miss instead of Alabama, where they produce offensive linemen like they're fruit in Florida. I mean, it was just absolutely unbelievable that Tunsil would decide to go there. That's the one that blew me away.
Yeah, no, you're right. That's true. That was always shady how it was happening. And I'm going to be honest. I don't mind shady recruiting tactics if it's to the players. I didn't mind it then. I don't care now. I don't really care that Gene Chizik gave Cam Newton $180,000 to go win a national title at Auburn.
Let's remember too, it wasn't only kind of shady. It was real shady because Tunsil in the draft, when he had the bong mask on, later admitted that he had taken money from Ole Miss coaches and like it was commonplace. Like he didn't even know it was a rule.
Yes. And also, let's not forget this. Hugh Freeze, when the investigation and the violations broke, to save his signing class, he and the Ole Miss administration threw Houston Nutt under the bus and created fake storylines that Houston Nutt was behind all this. They did that so the players there would stay with them through signing day. Then after the players signed, they knew it would come out that they were lying, but they didn't care because the players were stuck with them because this was pre-transfer portal. And so that was one of the snakiest moves of all. The guy's a snake. He's a snake and a liar.
Yeah, and I'm one that, and Caleb has learned this about me. I'll just tell you what I think. I don't really have an agenda. I had a person come up to me at the gym, so I'll say the same thing here that I would tell him. And he said, Josh Heupel's a good guy, though, right? And I said, well, I think that all college coaches that get to that level have some ego. I don't think there's any question about it. I think you could debate whether or not pushing guys out the door is okay, but nowadays it's commonplace. So, yeah. On that scale, I mean, I don't think he's a priest, by any stretch.
No.
None of these guys are. But I think he is one of the absolute better people in college football from everything I hear. And how fortunate is Tennessee to have an AD that's forward thinking, to have an AD that gets things done, to have a coach that's forward thinking and a good guy, and that's a and an offensive wizard. I mean, I don't think things get much better there. And you've got Florida who can't figure out how to pay their players, even though it's legal now. So I just think Tennessee's in a great spot. Now you have the big bugaboo right there in Georgia, and they're going to have to overcome that. But still, I mean, I just from top to bottom, you mentioned White. I thought of Heupel. They're just in great shape.
Yes, I think the two of them together are in incredible shape. They know, and they're very in sync. I think both are ahead of the curve in their own ways. And you're right; they both appear to be decent guys relative to the sport. You're right. I mean, like every great coach is going to push the rules a little bit to try to, do what they want to do. I think sometimes the funniest part is that, like, sometimes to me the greatest humans who were coaches don't always come across as the best because they're the most honest. I've said that for years about Steve Spurrier. I feel like Steve Spurrier is actually just a great guy, but because he was so honest about who he was, it kind of came across and rubbed people the wrong way, but I respected it. And
yeah, one of the most honest things he said that you could say was one of the dumbest it was when he said, "I'll just up and retire one day when I'm done with it." And sure enough, he did. That's exactly what he did. And when he got towards 10 years, I remember him saying publicly, 10 years is usually long enough to be at a job. And I'm thinking, no coach says that. Why? Because they want recruits to think they'll be there for 5 years. But Steve Spurrier is just so candid. It was fantastic.